2020 year. Welcome the Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, the press and the public. I'll ask for any apologies. I have two. One from Councillor Lovett, and we extend our sympathies for her at this stage. Any further apologies? If not, all in favour that Councillor Lovett's apology be received, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Extraordinary business. Any extraordinary business? Conflicts of interest. Item 4, Terms of Reference, Infrastructure Services Committee. Any comments? I think the wording is quite similar to other committees except for the spheres of business. I had inquired why stock water and water services were separated, but there is a logical reason for that. Water supplies is talking about water, stock water strategy, whereas stock water operations is a different thing altogether. Any comments? Recommendations? Does somebody like to move a recommendation? Councillor Rollinson.
There's no discussion. I'm happy to recommend that we adopt the terms of reference for the Infrastructure Services Committee as set out in Appendix 1.
Seconder? Councillor Brahm, thank you. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Item 2, on number 5, submission on reduced waste. Welcome, Craig and Richard. Anything to add to quite a lengthy report?
Not at this point.
Questions from Councillor, Mr. Mayor.
Just a question around on the submission on page 14, number 15. And council does not support treating farm pits as landfill sites. And then it goes on to the pros and cons of identifying and registering farm pits and their compliance status. I don't think there's a need to do that, as in identify and register them, because all farmers have a consent to farm, and part of that consent to farm, they have a farm environment plan, and in that farm environment plan, all offal pits and farm pits are identified in there, which is audited separately, and the results of that end up with ECAN. So this would be, identifying and registering them would be another layer, which I believe is not necessary because it is already captured. So I would recommend we remove that words
Yes,
of
Craig.
identifying and registering farm pits, because they're already done.
Yeah, just my comment on that is you'll see in the remainder of the submission there's quite a bit of discussion around our lack of measurement of waste right across the nation and our ability to know exactly what we're doing. So I think the intention there is really just so that you know, the regional councils and that are doing the monitoring of those consents and things can get a better handle on the volumes and things that are going into those facilities. I think it's the only reason that's there.
Yeah, for me, it's in the regional plan of what you can, how big your pit can be and et cetera, and it is captured under the Farm Environment Plan. The next one down, number 16, there's this comment there, many farm pits are located next to vulnerable waterways. The question is, how do you know that?
I think, again, yeah, this is a central government a consultation process, and they're talking about right across the entire nation. And so there has been a number of experiences already where we've had landfills close to waterways causing problems, Fox River, Rangitikei, and a few others. So it is more frequent than I think we would like.
That's fine, then we'll change the wording to many council pits are beside the waterways and not use the word farm pits. Does that make sense? That statement is saying that the farm pits are, and I would disagree with that statement on the ones I know of. And again, the Farm Environment Plan will not allow a farm pit within, I'm guessing, about 50 to 100 metres of a waterway. And it's a stock water race or a stream. There is some distance, I'm not sure of the exact measurement, but it does regulate for that. So I'd want those words changed and take away many farm pits, many council pits. Some council pits are located next to waterways.
Just perhaps more generic then.
Yeah, more generic.
Councillor Brown?
Yes, I've got a question. We just went past it. Basically, it was page 12. Maybe it's a typo, or maybe it's something I don't understand. In the introduction, point 3, with a growth over 33% square. Is that a term, or is it something I just picked up?
Footnote, sorry. Bottom of the page.
Thank you. And while we're there, we just, with another, just earlier today, we looked at the growth of Ashburton, and it's at 23%. And now we seem to have 33% growth.
Just to clarify, they're different timeframes. So this growth is from 1996. Okay. The earlier report referred to the growth since the last census.
Thank you. Great.
Councillor Ronson?
Thank you. Just on point number 25, Craig, there's probably a wee typo there, the word weather. Council takes the view that whether the maximum rate for a class 1 landfill should reach $50 a tonne, so it's the sentence doesn't make sense.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we'll correct that.
Just on point number 9, council operates a number of clean fill sites, and you'd need weighbridges set up there. I think that would be probably cost prohibitive, I would think, to set up weighbridges going to clean fill sites. And if because they're out in the country, the old unused shingle pits, I think is what they are, those clean fill sites. And it could be an overkill. Clean fill going in, which is just rubble, no household waste or whatever, is probably approved, but do you need to weigh it? Does it need to get captured in a landfill levy? Don't know, it's not going to landfill.
That is something we can review. I think a little bit of clarification around the classification system they're proposing. The government is based on the technical guidelines. So clean fill is actually like a site where like-for-like material is going in. So if you've got it's what they're talking about is virgin material. So if you scrape, you had a subdivision, you scrape the topsoil off, and it's essentially a consistent matter, and it's going into in a pit of where the background material is the same, or if a gravel pit, you're putting river gravels back into the gravel pit, then that is what they would, under the technical guidelines, define as a clean fill. The sites that we're operating quite often have bits of bitumen and rubble and concrete, and the concentrations of those material is much higher than the background material, and therefore they would actually fall into what they call a Class 4 controlled site. The other part of that definition about being controlled is that the gate, and that we ask people who put material into those pits to report back to us the volumes of what they're putting in there and what they are putting in there. So under the proposal the government's got in front of you, a number of the sites that council are operating would actually be Class 4 landfill, and so fall under the proposal.
Mr Mayor?
And just on a question on the rate, if it went to $50 or $60 a tonne, whatever it is, I think if those monies are collected in this district, then they get returned back to this district to do the good work with it, rather than heading off somewhere else for another district to do something with. You paid here, used here, if there's a levy, an increased levy.
Yeah, so currently this district actually does very well out of the levy. So on an overall basis, the government takes 50%, withholds 50%. This is collected nationally. And then the other 50% is allocated based on population. So the way it works out for Ashburton District at the moment is that we pay $10 a tonne and we're getting back $11 a tonne. We're actually doing very well out of it. So that is one of the things around equity across the country that they're looking at, whereas some of the smaller councils like Kokura and Mackenzie and that have very small ratepayer bases, they're not getting a fair deal out of that system. And so that's why they're looking at how that can be readjusted to be more equitable across the country.
Of those projects that money gets returned back to us, those projects that are happening, which committee or where do we get a report on the use of those funds?
I have to report back to the Ministry for the Environment on the spend of that landfill levy money. And currently all of it is used every year, and we use it to pay for our waste education programs. We use it to pay for the treatment of hazardous waste so that we can receive them for free in the Resource Recovery Park, and also e-waste and other hazardous materials. So, and that's currently costing us more than what we get back from the levy.
And to be more specific in response to your question, Mr Mayor, through you, Mr Chairman, this committee.
Yes, I've got a philosophical question. To me, why are you going to charge, this policy is going to be more and more and more expensive, and what are people going to do? They're going to go down to the local plantation. To me, it's not the consumer's fault. Most of us don't want a cardboard box this big with this much material in it. I think it's the manufacturers or the retailers that should be being targeted. Because what else do you see? Our yellow bins quite often quite full. Well, what are people? Is it the consumer's fault that there's cardboard and plastic and everything in everything they buy? What else are they going to do with it? And why are we penalising the purchaser of these goods when they've got no say? You can go to the supermarket and get your fruit and stuff without having in containers. But most, like breakfast cereals and most of your foodstuffs are in cardboard boxes or whatever, or plastic boxes. To me, well, what's the argument that more and more and more expensive this gets, the more and more people are going to take the easy way out, or else it's going to be more and more expensive as a council, and our rates are going to go up, and people are going to say, why are you putting the rates up more and more and more? And it's not our policy, it's government policy.
Yeah, the local authority, like the TA officers like myself and that, we are constantly feeding back to government that more needs to be done at the top end of the supply chain. So, you know, we, at this level, we are very much the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. You know, we're cleaning up after the mess is made. And we're constantly feeding back that the government needs to encourage manufacturers and processors to design waste out, to look more carefully at packaging, and to develop stewardship schemes. And they the government is proposing 6 priority areas to look at for stewardship schemes. So a very successful one at the moment is the Ag Recovery Scheme that you will be aware of, where they bring in ag recovery chemical containers and they chip and recycle those. And that's paid for up front. When you buy the chemical, you're also paying for have that chemical container recycled. So there are schemes like that the government is working to get in place, particularly around tyres, electronics, soft plastics, packaging and stuff and things like that. All these things that are problems right now, they are, and with feedback from us councils to actually do something about that top end of that supply chain. So you're dead right. And that is in play, that is happening. We're hoping to see some progress on that. What we do know is that when you look at other countries, they use waste levy, they use this mechanism to actually reduce the amount of waste, to encourage people to look more carefully at what they're throwing away, so they avoid the landfill costs and they recycle more. And it does work. I mean, there's plenty of numbers around the stuff that it does actually work.
Well, what's the mechanism we as a local body can introduce? I mean, as you said about tyres, you get new tyres, you pay a levy now to your tyre supplier to get rid of your old tyres. What's the difference between supermarkets had to provide bins or something so you could bring back your empty packets or everything, so that it doesn't fall on local body staff to get rid of it? I mean, batteries, everything you pay a levy on a lot of things you buy, as you say, with agriculture containers, as part of the cost. Why does government not legislate that people provide the plastic bottles of soft drink or the big cardboard containers? They are required to have a facility to accept it back.
Yeah, I believe they're looking at that's exactly that sort of stuff right now. Rather than actually legislate, it'll be more like I say, they're looking at stewardship schemes. Big business isn't particularly responsive to having legislation put on them to do this. So it's stewardship schemes are more the industry taking responsibility themselves and setting these things up, and that's generally how they work. The Ag Recovery Scheme is a good example of that and works well. So there is a lot of work going at that end of the supply chain around that stuff. The government are also looking at a container deposit scheme, so they've been looking very closely at bringing back, and you know how you used to sell your glass bottles and you get money back at the dairy when your kids and stuff. They're looking at bringing that sort of thing back in again, so that they can fund the reuse of this material. Within the next few days, there's a report coming out around plastics, and they've done some good research around plastics, and there's some good recommendations in there around asking the government to limit the types of plastic that can be used in packaging, so that we don't end up with the problem plastics. So there is some good stuff happening, but we still need seed money to fund some of those big onshore processing facilities. So like you're talking about tyres before, you're dead right. We've got mechanisms in place now where tyres can be collected, but once they're collected, what do we do with them? Or we can't continue to export them overseas, and we've got piles and piles of them around the country. We need some way to actually deal with that material, and that costs money to set that up. Once you've got it set up, once you've invested that capital into those plants and you've got it up and running, then everything settles down and runs really sweetly. You just need the seed money to get started, and that's what the levy's for.
Mr. Mayor?
I'll go back to page 14, number 15, and I inadvertently slightly misled the committee when I said that all farms have FEPs. On reflection, not all farms do have FEPs. If your farm, I think it's less than 50 hectares and less than half that 50 hectares is intensive winter grazing, you do not need a farm environment plan. So anything that above that level does. So there would be some landfills on farms that would not be captured with a farm environment plan. So in adding to that, in number 15 to that submission, you might want to put the words at the end that are not operating with the farm environment plan. So if they haven't got a farm environment plan, yes, you may need to register your farm pit, which is for the lifestyle blocks, I suppose what I'm getting at.
Any further discussion? Well, Mr Mayor, would you like to perhaps move a motion with your amended recommendations in it? Would somebody like to move one way or the other?
I think the staff have taken on board. There's just a few little tweaks in there. Yeah. And no doubt you would probably email it out with the tweaks to see that we're happy with it. This is not going to council, is it? Because there's not enough time, I think. Correct?
No, submissions are due on the 3rd of February,
Yeah.
which is Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday next week. And I'm on leave as of Friday this week. So we'll be tidying it up in the next 24 hours. And I'm not sure whether that gives us enough time to get it out and back from all councillors, but certainly I'd be expecting that the Chief Executive and the Mayor would have the opportunity to run their eyes over it.
Okay, that sounds good, and time is of the essence. So I'm happy to move that heads off to where it needs to head off to with the slight amendments, and for the CE and the Mayor to just oversee it to see that it's been adjusted as we've discussed. But all members can obviously get it, and if they're not happy with it, well, they'll obviously respond back fairly quick. But I think the submission's very good. Just a couple of wee minor changes, and it's spot on. So happy to move.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. You've moved, we approve the submissions with the minor adjustments that
Yes.
you've suggested.
Yep.
Councillor Ronson?
And I'm happy to second that along with Councillor Brown's, Mayor Brown's comments.
Any further comments? If not, all in favour of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried. Any further business for the Infrastructure Services Committee? Anybody to bring up? I'm trying to make it last till 12:30 for lunchtime. If not, thank you for your attendance, and I'll declare the meeting closed.